Bandwidth for JS Party is provided by Fastly. Learn more at fastly.com.
Come on, everybody, let's
What the? Welcome to JS Party, a weekly celebration of JavaScript and the web. Tune in live on Fridays at 3 p.m. US Eastern at changelog.com/live. Join the community and Slack with us in real time. Head to changelog.com/community. Follow us on Twitter. We're at JSPartyFM. And now on to the show.
All right, welcome to episode 24 or so of the yayQuery podcast, takeover of the JS Party podcast. It's been a couple minutes, maybe a few weeks here now since we've had a yayQuery episode, but for JS Party listeners who don't know yayQuery, yayQuery is myself, and then in order, introduce yourselves, Paul, Rebecca, Adam.
Paul Irish. I am a JavaScript developer and I like the web, and that's me.
Known for his ability to communicate well, Paul Irish.
known for liking the web, Paul Irish. I'm Rebecca Murphey. I'm also a JavaScript developer. I think the web's okay.
That's fair.
I'm Adam Sontag. I love the www, which is, I believe, Paul's real original bio. So I also am an erstwhile JavaScript developer and now community director, I guess. So
Community.
Yeah.
So we used to have a podcast called yayQuery. One of the first nascent JavaScript podcasts. It was loosely about jQuery, but we branched very quickly into most front-end web development topics pretty quickly. JS Party actually somewhat gets its name from the whimsy of the yayQuery days. I think one of the original names for JS Party was JS Matters, because it's like events or like things about JavaScript and also that it matters. But they thought that was
not like Family Matters.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much exactly like Family Matters. But normally I'm joined by Michael Rogers and Rachel White, but they're like in Germany or something. I have no idea where they are. Who knows? Who could possibly know that information? So this week we've decided to have a little yayQuery reunion for everybody. So let's jump in, since we have a little bit to talk about. What has changed since the last episode that we've had? I think Rebecca and I both have children now.
That's no big deal.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, 2.0.
Yeah. It never occurred to me until now that we never put dates on the yayQuery website. So it kind of seems kind of evergreen.
It's evergreen until you listen to like 3 seconds of it. And we're like, jQuery 1.4.111 commit 93870 came out today.
Seems so important.
Yeah. I mean, it was at the time. All right. So I think we're going to start off with not a traditional segment, but we kind of want to talk about things that didn't exist in the web or JavaScript the last time we were all on a podcast together, which is quite a bit, which is kind of cool in how fast things gather speed and become like the main deals that everyone talks about, but you don't realize how quickly that kind of comes up. Paul, you want to talk about something that has happened since then?
Sure. There was a JavaScript framework that was introduced in this time period that some of you might be familiar with, called React.js.
I hear they want to put XML in our JavaScript.
Yeah, no, exactly. So
I think
Hold on. I'm going to need to angrily put down my margarita to listen to this.
But yeah, there was this. So the interesting thing here was like React.js actually launched at JSConf in Florida, and I think were all of us there at that one?
I think we were
I
actually
introed the talk.
Oh,
we were
damn.
already doing
Didn't we do
yayQuery
the
reunion.
yayQuery reunion?
It was
Yeah, we
that
were
one.
already
Same here.
doing yayQuery reunions when React came out.
Oh my god. Yeah, and I remember from that, like, the vibe that day at the conference. Like, Facebook just showed this thing where they want to put XML and JS. That is crazy. This framework, like, why are they doing this? Why don't they just work with one of the existing frameworks? Like, this is so against the community or something. Like, I felt like there was so much like concern and being like, don't like this that day.
There was two tweets from close friends of the yayQuery podcast. I think Rick Waldron and Ben Allman both had tweets that were pretty much like, Facebook is belittling all best practices that have ever existed in the face of like just so very serious tweets. But to be fair, I think Tomaccino was he? I don't know if he was ever on a yayQuery show, but he was definitely like spoke at the first TXJS because he was friends with us. But I think they focused on the wrong stuff in that first talk. I think it was because later they did the talk just like 6 months later at EU, and everyone loved it. So I think they were trying to focus on the bindy type, like auto bindy type stuff, because that was really hip, and they were like glossing over the fact that they had added like this ES4 feature of JSX back into the language, and didn't necessarily like on-click handlers and all that stuff. So.
And Pete Hunt talked about that at TXJS 2015 about kind of the mistakes of that rollout. I remember there's probably alcohol involved because it was the end of the day and it was like the big reveal. But I just remember the room being like appalled at this thing that they were seeing. And it was a long time before it kind of recovered from that.
Yeah, it was like there was a good like at least 6 months where it just had everyone had a really like bad opinion of it and was just like, ugh, don't like it. And it was.
But Dojo though, guys, Dojo is totally still.
I often think about our arguments back in the day, Rebecca, of rolling your own large application with jQuery or using Dojo, and how I think Paul one time said something along the lines of like, Alex, I think you won that argument in that people agreed with you and went that direction, but Rebecca was right, and then we were all wrong because none of those things occur anymore.
Like in that you were right in the argument of rolling your own is just more feasible and kind of easier.
But Rebecca was right in the sense that like it's actually better. Or whatever.
Rebecca was right in that Rebecca was at Bazaar Voice for another 3 years after Alex rolled his own.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And left us.
Moving on. You're at Indeed now, correct, Rebecca?
That's right.
Do you guys use types? Do you use Flow or TypeScript or anything?
Oh God, do I have to answer this?
Well, I mean, that's the next thing that I was going to talk about because like Flow type, another Facebook things, but also TypeScript prior.
I'm a little bit like the actual answer is yes, but we mostly use Google Closure, but we're fixing that.
The comments with the
like Google Closure itself, Google Closure the library, and then the Closure compiler.
You use Closure library.
Yeah. But not we have some teams that are people really like the strong typing of that, and so we have some teams that are moving away from Closure because like no one uses it except Google.
Sure.
No offense. But moving to things like TypeScript and Flow, we haven't really settled on one, but people like their types because they're Java people.
Yeah, that's a really interesting segue because Closure like had type annotations in comments in order to do like way better building way back in the day. I added them to YepNope, and I would double minify YepNope with Closure, and then with Uglify, it would come out smaller.
And it would take 10 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was small enough. But yeah, so since then we've had kind of FlowType and TypeScript come up. FlowType's written in OCaml. So if you ever want to attribute to that, brush up on your OCaml. But I guess I'm interested on knowing like what the uptick on types across like the regular JavaScript community is. I imagine it seems popular. Paul?
Yeah, at least I'll say, and I work on a few projects. So I work on both the Chrome DevTools and on Lighthouse, which is kind of an auditing performance tool. DevTools is written. We use Clojure compiler, so everything has the annotations, and it's really like when the entire project is annotated. That compilation step is super valuable and super useful. Over in Lighthouse, we have a portion of it, like our CLI, we actually ported over to TypeScript, and then we're using Clojure annotations for the remainder of the JavaScript in the project. So we're using kind of like a little bit of both there. And it's interesting because it's like, I mean, we haven't, like, at least on our team, we haven't come to a conclusion about it. It's like, well, the TypeScript is nice because it catches different things, and it's like there's better in-editor tooling support. But the compile step is, annoying. Whereas, the immediate reload or rerun of just JavaScript is so attractive. So we're just kind of like in that holding pattern.
I've overheard people say things to that effect, which is like, "Oh, are you using TypeScript?" Nah, I'm like only going as far as ES6 modules. I'm only, like, it feels like if I want to be going down the path of what JavaScript is going down, maybe I might avoid that.
Yeah.
And I think that what we've seen is that types help, but they don't like make you write good JavaScript. And so you can have a Clojure compiler comment that says these 40 arguments are these types, but you still are passing in 40 arguments. So I think it can seem like kind of the safety net for people who maybe aren't used to writing JavaScript, which is kind of my world, but it doesn't make your JavaScript good.
Cool.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think part of the standards bodies are kind of maybe taking, like, normally when people kind of do their own things and add to, like, CoffeeScript happen, and then I think a lot of ES6 was at least sped up, and some syntax like fat arrows were inspired by CoffeeScript, and like the things, innovations to the language end up in the spec. But I almost feel like the opposite thing is happening with types, where they're like, we want to get types in. We've been looking at it for a long time. It's hard. Let's try this. Let's try this. And then whenever like FlowType and TypeScript came out, they're like, okay, well, those things solve it. So let's not work on it as hard in the spec because people have options already. So I'm interested to see how that plays out long term. I don't ever see JavaScript in types for what it's worth. It would just change it too fundamentally. But maybe I'm wrong. That's a prediction. I mean, in that same vein, like I think ES5, we did an episode whenever ES5 landed, and we talked about the new like array prototype functions and things like that, and how you'd have to use polyfills to get it all to work. So since then, a few versions of JavaScript have been released, and it's kind of evergreen now, and it's hard. I guess JavaScript isn't evergreen. That's HTML, whatever. But we've had ES6, ES7, ES 2015, ES 2016, and now we're in the midst of 2017. I think we're all using it. Everyone using Babel for everything. I guess DevTools probably isn't, Paul,
Except
right?
Brian LaRue.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't use Babel. I think part of it is because, yeah, in the DevTools case, like we only run in Chrome, so we write code. We make sure that what we're writing today and lands essentially in Canary will work in Chrome stable. Like that's kind of what we have to operate under. But yeah, compiling the source is kind of has some ergonomic downsides. So we're not really interested in it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then since then, we also one of the news segments on the show that we did was talk about when Node was released at JSConf EU. And
no one's ever going to use JavaScript on the server.
Yeah, we seemed excited about it, but I think none of us really understood what it was, and we were all just excited because Twitter was so excited about it.
Well, I have my favorite story.
Go ahead.
about it, which you all know my story, which is that when Node.js came out, you all were excited about it running around Europe, and everyone was like, I was like, what is Node.js? What is Node.js? And like NoSQL was like a thing. I was like, oh, so like Node.js is like the NoSQL of JavaScript. It's like JavaScript without JavaScript. But then I found out that it was called Node.js.
Node.js. I like it.
So yeah.
Can I ask another question on this topic, which is, because I think one of you guys know the answer better than me, around ES modules and MJS, the MJS extension? Because one, I don't really know where things are completely, but I just remember being like slightly, infuriated that we're going to have to adopt .mjs for all the ES module files for this whole node compatibility. And I was like, come on, like the people that have been doing it wrong, they get the real extension, and now the real thing have to kicked off. And I was like, this is so stupid. It's stupid. And then like at some point I was like hanging out with Alex Russell and Dominic DeNicola, and I was like, guys, isn't this so stupid? And they're like, why? What's the problem with it? They're like, seems okay. And I was like, well, if they think it's okay, then probably I guess it's okay.
You kind of glossed over that I think it's Bradley Meck mostly was working on how to do importing of JavaScript modules in Node.js, like officially, based on the stuff. And it turned out I don't even know the exact details of the problem, but there's some problem where because people were doing modules in a weird way before, all their stuff would break if we kept using the same system that they're currently using. And so in order to differentiate between those two different systems, you would name your real new official modules with the extension .mjs instead of .js. And I think I agree that like the people who broke it should have to change. What's the? I think it's a Office Space quote. Why should I have to change my name? He's the one who sucks. Michael Bolton. We don't have a ton of time to get through the beginning of this, so we're going to move on a little bit. There was an IOJS release and fork and a few other things, but Node.js 8 is coming out soon, so I don't think we can cover all that. And plus, Michael's not on the show, and he'll want to have opinions. That was our section of things that didn't exist in JavaScript since we last had an episode. I don't think we nailed it because we talked about two things we talked about on previous episodes, but whatever. Then the next section we have in here is things that used to exist when we had episodes but don't anymore. I only put two things in here. YepNope, I deprecated YepNope. That was people still use it. It's very popular still for some reason. And JSConf US is something we talked about a lot. Maybe it'll come back though. I wanted to intentionally rush through that section because it wasn't that interesting.
Moving on.
The last thing that I wanted to talk about was a little background behind some of the language we used on the show that I don't think we ever
some kind of behind the scenes action.
Yeah, a little bit of like behind the scene. I don't know a different word for behind the scenes action. Paul, people may have seen us talking about like editing a clap, or this is what's on the clap. Can you give me some background on that?
Okay, sure. So the way that we put together yayQuery episodes, we'd get together, and I think we'd like get on video chat. We would get on a little Etherpad document, and Etherpad's, it was like an Ajax app with collaborative editing where everyone's edits is highlighted, so it's very clear like who wrote what. And then we'd like just get on there and start drinking, and then figure out what the hell we're going to talk about, and then like 2 hours later actually record an episode, I think, actually. But anyways, that Etherpad instance that we had was hosted on oksoclap.com. And this was hosted by our friend Vlad, who set the whole thing up for us. And it was like the coolest little instance, and it worked so good for us. Now, the history of that OKSoClap is pretty much because in the beginnings of yayQuery, I think it was my fault that was it just when I was getting like tired of a topic, or
no, it was like, at the beginning of every segment, Paul, any segment that Paul would start.
Oh, right. And I'm like starting to be like, okay, this is how it went.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay, so this is how the story goes,
Exactly.
And And I say, okay, so, and I clap my hands. And it was just like, I don't know, like a nervous tick, but it just turned into a thing that Alex picked up on and made it into a thing.
And now the DNS entry doesn't resolve.
If I recall, Alex is a guy who knows when things are things.
I'm a guy who knows when things are things, and that was a thing. I think we're running up on the first break, so we're going to take a break right now and come back with a few classic segments.
Yeah.
First sponsor of the show today is our friends at Sentry, helping you to find and fix your errors in your applications. You can start tracking your errors today totally free. They support React, Angular, Ember, Vue, Backbone, and Node frameworks like Express and Koa. You can view actual code and stack traces, including support for source maps, see the error's URL, parameters, and session information, and even prompt your user for feedback when you have front-end errors. Head to jsparty.fm/Sentry. Start tracking your errors for free today. No credit card required. Get off the ground with their free plan, and when you're ready to expand your usage, simply pay as you go. Once again, jsparty.fm/Sentry. And now back to the show.
And we're back. During the break, some people, the other, Paul reminded me of the fact that the OK So Clap Etherpad instance was actually used by TC39, the technical committee number 39 from the ECMA standards body organization system enterprise. They used the OK So Clap for years to take notes. So like the official JavaScript language was partially developed using the OKSoClap.com Etherpad created by yayQuery. So our tentacles go deep into the language.
So deep.
Adam,
was this?
Oh yeah, and I was gonna say it's like there's just I remember it's a symbol of how different that whole like sort of standards process is than like when we started yayQuery. It's a lot more open, and I think that is a nice thing to point out. And that
the fact that like when we started, it was like, you know, a bunch of people that who knew who it even was, and then nowadays, like, you know, not only like Rick Waldron has been involved in it forever, but people from Twitter and like Node and a lot of like actual JavaScript developers from the community are engaged in TC39. So it's a much different and much more open collaborative feeling these days.
Uh-huh.
I think it was Rick that was the crossover between yayQuery backchanneling and taking notes at TC39 meetings. And he did that through the jQuery Foundation seat that we bought on TC39 for him and Yehuda. So it was actually jQuery the popularity of jQuery was able to raise enough money to create a foundation that was able to buy seats on TC39 to put real developers and open up notes and do those things. So I think a lot of that history of the community getting more involved and stuff is really nifty and nice, and glad to have seen it happen. I forgot Michael and Rachel are going to be gone next week, and I need to get Rick on the show. Maybe we'll see.
We could just do this again.
Yeah, whatever.
I can shave my head or something.
We just fully take over the podcast. Lock Rachel and Michael up in a closet every Friday.
I could do like a part where I talk about steak or something. I don't know.
Steak? I don't know.
A steak that you flew home with you?
Oh, that's a different story.
Oh.
I'm lost. There's a soundboard. Sometimes we get Rachel talking about cat hair, which is probably my favorite one. Can we play that?
Hold on, I have cat hair in my mouth. 1 second.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Cat hair in my mouth. Yeah, don't say anything you don't want to be turned in.
Oh wait, that happened on an episode of Gilmore Girls. I know what that is.
That was about Node.js forking into IO.js. That was the Gilmore Girls season 2, episode 3. Let's get into a classic segment. This is a little segment. It's about little tiny things that you never thought you knew. It's a segment we like to call Hidden
What? The little tiny things you never thought you'd see.
And if we're lucky, we added some audio for our old song to be there. And if you're
so you
unlucky,
didn't have to hear that.
then you heard us yelling it. Or maybe you got both. Cool. So the hidden enhancement this week, Adam, why don't you introduce the concept?
Okay, so the concept of a hidden enhancement, it's enhancement that's hidden, kind of like the last syllable of the first syllable of the word enhancement is hidden in the last syllable of the word hidden. So this is a segment where we would talk about like cool stuff that kind of was around and you didn't know you could use. And
in jQuery.
Like primarily in jQuery, but now most of that is in the DOM or some shit. Right, Paul?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so there was at least 2 hidden enhancements that I wanted to share. One's kind of actually they're both kind of new. You might be familiar with document.elementFromPoint, where you provide an XY location and it tells you the element that is right there. But there is another method which is more useful in some cases. Like if you know about that one, you might have some code where you're like, okay, we take the first one and then we're gonna like set pointer events or just hide it and then find out what's underneath it. So the other method is document.elementsFromPoint, the plural. And this returns an array of nodes from top to bottom that live at that XY coordinate. So you can just see exactly what the stack is.
Is it a node list?
Is a node list. Is it?
Is it node list or is it an array?
It's an array. God damn. Well, there's an interesting distinction between arrays and node lists, right?
What's that, Paul?
A node list is like this, array-like thing, but it's been frustrating because we always get back node lists from like query selector all or get elements by tag name, right? And a node list you can't do things with that you'd normally do with an array, right?
Or there's like, if I recall, there's like prototype methods missing and
do a slice, yeah.
Yeah, it's always been frustrating. So that's why we always do that array prototype slice deal. So number 2 hidden enhancement is that the node list object is now iterable. So that means you get back.
It's everywhere?
Yeah, it is everywhere. I think probably IE10 is probably where it bottoms out. But yeah, iterable node list available in all modern browsers. You get back the result from query selector all, and you have 4 each sitting on that.
Speaking of IE10, I just wanted to let you know about this other new browser that came out called IE9. It's going to have CSS3 support. And you can read or hear us talk all about this in the South by Southwest question mark episode of yayQuery.
Oh yeah, me and Paul. Oh, that's a good story. Paul and I were given via yayQuery because we were on the yayQuery podcast. For some reason, we got VIP press badges to the IE9 launch party at South by Southwest, and we sat at like press tables as they did the press announcement. Like we were next to Wired. Like Wired was writing the article on IE9 being launched, and me and Paul were just writing tweets about how IE9 was just like gaming all of their demos. It was a really good time, and then we got to go see Yaysayer at the after party in the VIP section. I think we were there with who was it? Werner Vogels from Amazon, the CTO of Amazon. It was a wild ride. IE9, good old days. Yeah, yayQuery press badges were a thing at some point.
That's so legit.
That's funny. So one other hidden enhancement that I wanted to bring up, I saw an Adi Osmani tweet maybe a few bits ago. There's a new feature in DevTools. Paul knows a little bit about DevTools, Chrome DevTools specifically. And we're always talking about like splitting up your code and only loading the code that you need for the initial load and stuff like that. And it's actually a pretty difficult thing to know. You can have like really cool, good dependency management and try to figure it all out and like do trees and some sort of something. But DevTools can tell you now exactly what code runs. I think splitting it up still might be difficult, but it's a really good like indicator, I think, of that. Can you tell us how to find that, Paul?
Sure. So in DevTools, what you can do is it's in a place that we call the drawer, which is like the little console at the bottom when you hit escape and that pops up. And so you can definitely hit escape to bring up that, or you can go through the top right, the little 3 dots menu, go to more tools and click coverage. Either way, you're going to click a little menu, some 3 dots, and go for coverage. And from there, there's a little record button. So start recording and stop it when you're done. You can just do it instantly. If all you want to look at is CSS, it's just going to look at the CSS that's used on the page. But usually you're looking at script, so you'll want to like load the page and maybe like open up, like try out some functionality. And then you get a report on exactly how many bytes of every file that's loaded have been evaluated either by the JavaScript engine or the style engine. And then from there, you can go see the exact lines and whether they were evaluated or not. And yeah, and evaluate, figure out on your own what you can kill off or what you could move to another module and lazy load it, things like that.
Very nifty.
Mm-hmm. There's some cool stuff too. Add one more thing. Sorry. In that, we're also thinking of making it more like live. So all those results would be streaming, and maybe you would be able to like rewind to certain interesting points, like, at DOM content loaded, it was this, but then you scrub the slider forward and see what it was at window load. So you can get like the history of all the coverage. So you could get a better idea of how it kind of changes over time as each file was loaded and each thing happens. So there's some ideas there. If anybody wants anything in particular, just holler at me. I'll do it.
Is this available as data from like Lighthouse or anything like that?
Yeah. We have it available. We have some audits for this in Lighthouse too, and we just kind of summarize it at a high level. But yeah, and you can also build some tooling around this on your own if you want to dig into the DevTools protocol. And it's pretty raw data over there, and it's going to need some massaging. But if you are interested in building a tool that kind of automates looking at this, then you definitely can.
Sure. I think you have a tool that was my pick last week. It's PW something or other, right? PW.
Yeah, PW Metrics.
PW Metrics is a command line tool that will automatically run Lighthouse locally in a Chrome instance. So if you wanted to hook that up to your kind of like build process to get metrics out and then have kind of like tests that pass. So I think it could be a really nifty test to say that like you can never ship more than, like some bottom line of like 80% of the code that gets loaded must be executed. Otherwise, like the tests fail or something. Does that make sense? It could be a really nifty, like kind of build time check that causes you to never go over that. Because once you go over it too far, it's much harder to fix.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Yeah, that's really nifty. Good job at your job. Next up, we have probably the most famous segment. It's a little it's the
it's the plug it up the week. It's plug it up the week.
What would we have today? Would we have like the Webpack loader of the week?
Yeah.
What would be
the Babel transform of the week?
Babel transform.
The reaction of the week.
So today's plugin of the week, I picked this, but Rebecca, I don't know if you've actually looked at it. So Rebecca, why don't you go ahead and actually take this one for us?
Wow. That's really, it's an explosive modal. It's the most explosive modal on the web. It's called Explodal, duh. Like, what else would you call the most explosive modal on the web? And this is in the true spirit of jQuery plugins, I feel like. It's like functionality that you...
It's just CSS.
Well, I was going to say it's functionality that you probably don't need on your website, but there's a plugin for it, so why don't you add it?
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. There's a nice...
It's a modal that explodes open.
It explodes.
Yeah, I think like some good use cases for this, like the add to cart button on Amazon would be good. So you click add to cart and instantly Amazon's like with like flames and fire and really just it's a nice it's those little touches. that really add to that user experience.
Only 97.32% CSS, so I don't think we can say it's just CSS.
I think the other part is a GIF, though, right?
No, there's one line of JavaScript.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
I'd have to look at this on GitHub really to
It's
see.
an on-click handler.
Oh, they really should have done the old checkbox checked thing where you didn't need JavaScript.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean,
that
they're
old
using
trick.
a straight-up on-click handler, like inline on-click. That's pretty
that's rough.
classic.
Are you suggesting that they might not need JavaScript?
I also, as part of the plugin of the week, I don't think it was ever the plugin of the week, but this felt like the right place to talk about it. One friend of the podcast, Ralph Holzman, let me know recently that there was recent activity in the Lab.js project. Lab.js, if you remember, was one of the many entrants to the script loader wars back in the day. The good old wars.
Oh, God.
For asynchronous.
We lost a lot of good devs out there.
With Lab.js was Kyle Simpson or Getify, as you've probably seen streams of consciousness fly by your Twitter screen from him. But really bright dude. But I definitely did not expect a 3.0 or any late updates to these script loader entries. So 3.0 is in the works. I think it actually is somewhat in relation to actual standards that have gotten through. So Kyle did some work with the standards bodies to do like some of like the async false stuff in order to like guarantee in order async loading. So if you inject a script with async false after the DOM was already loaded, it means that it must execute in order, and that is like a thing now.
It's a thing?
There's also I think it's legit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alex gets to say when things are things.
I believe it.
If he says it's a thing, it's a thing.
If he says it, okay.
Yeah, but specifically link rel preload. Another one of Paul's coworkers, Eric Beidelman, recently tweeted about link rel preload for scripts and styles landing. So you can preload critical resources, but you can also do that with like service workers and stuff too. So choose your tools wisely. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. A little Lab.js update for everyone in 2017. Next up, we were going to have Paul Irish's
jQuery anti-pattern for performance of the week.
Yeah, Womp Womp is correct because I think Paul, we've just decided that jQuery is the anti-pattern for performance of the week.
Ouch.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh,
Sick
man.
burn.
That's a double burn because that was my pre-show burn.
Yeah. So we'll move on quickly. How to stay. Next up is a less oft used segment that we had in yayQuery called the yayQuery Beginner's Corner, and I would implore us to not sing this one, Adam. Okay, Adam can sing it.
yayQuery. So something like that. Okay.
Everything is new. Yeah. Okay. Cut that out.
Oh yeah, where everything is new.
Yeah, that's
Aww.
Jonathan Neal is dying somewhere in the
I think
party
you started
Slack.
an octave too high there.
Yeah.
Pull that off.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Jonathan Neal for all of the music that hopefully you're hearing again. There's a what's it called? A band camp with all of this music out there from John. I remember
just
back.
Google John Neal Bandcamp, and all the music is right there. It's so good.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, we are like, "Hey, John, you had like written some jQuery song once. You want to do a theme song for us?" And then like a day and a half later, he's like, "Here's 21 songs, cut to different lengths, all perfectly recorded for segments you didn't even know you had yet."
With like dense Beach Boys-esque vocals. Like it wasn't just like he like turned on his tape recorder and like let his melodica rip.
Bizarre in how fast and good the turnaround was on that.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Truly amazing.
Anyway, let's get into the beginner's corner. Who I think Rebecca, you were talking about.
Me. This was always my segment to like say things that maybe you didn't know. I just watched this
It's a different
video.
segment, actually.
What?
The things you maybe didn't know is actually different. That's the hidden enhancement.
Okay.
Wow.
You can just go on
Is this the throwdown here?
yeah. Throwdown is next.
This is actually Rebecca's own segment.
Yes, he did. He did just do that.
Classic.
As men do. No. Sorry. No, I just saw this video and a lot of people are really mystified by Webpack and how it works, especially people who are kind of new to JavaScript and front-end development, or people who've been doing it for a while but feel like they need to be doing it right now. And they're like, oh, I need to learn Webpack, and yikes, that's scary. This was just a really great video by Naomi Jacobs at Buzz.js. So check that out. I hadn't heard of her, but she was just a really approachable speaker who kind of laid out, here's what Webpack actually does. Like, it's not magic, it's just JavaScript to make your app be able to load asynchronously, be able to load in tiny chunks instead of all at once, and be able to do, all the cool things that you can do with Webpack. So check it out. It's, I don't know, like 45 minutes or so long, but it was super approachable. And I sat in a room with a bunch of other devs watching it and could see them like, oh, I get it now. So highly recommend.
On the topic of Webpack, I do some Webpack work and have configured some crazy Webpacks in my day. But there's some of it that's weird, right? Like does anyone like fully get why it's like query parameter based configuration in parts? Is there a reason for that?
I mean, it's like anything. It's like anything else that just like somebody needed something, and so somebody wrote code to make that thing. And there wasn't like a design review behind it, I imagine. Here's how we should do it. But you don't have to pass it. Like the query parameters are a nice string-based way to express configuration, but you can also set those as an object in the loader config out in your Webpack config.
Right.
So, I don't know. It's a cool hack. Do you want to write JSON strings by hand? No. Right. So
whatever.
Query strings. Okay. Here we are.
Here we are. I added something to this section too, so I might as well mention it. I think everyone shared it a million times, but if you ever want to learn Redux, I really like the Getting Started with Redux course on egghead.io from Dan Abramov, who wrote Redux. It's very good. He takes you kind of through like the concepts of Redux by more or less building Redux for you, and that sounds actually way scarier, but he pretty much says like, let's do this thing where we have this very simple thing, and it turns out we need this tool, and then he builds that tool in front of you. It's like, yeah, it's already in Redux. It's kind of a good way to do it.
But I want to can I say a thing about Redux?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You might not need Redux.
Do you have a webpage for that?
I don't, but I will by the time this podcast is over.
Couldn't possibly be true.
I will by the time my company sponsors me to write one, so that we get some sweet marketing buzz.
No, we were rewriting a thing on Indeed.com that I can't really say much more about, but we were rewriting it, and we were using Preact and Preact Redux and Redux, and I did the Webpack bundle analyzer thing, and it was like 7K of my 21K bundle was for Redux and Preact Redux. And it was like, this is actually really simple and totally not worth 1/3 of our bundle. We'll just do old school React state management. And it's like, it's okay. You don't have to use all these tools.
Just like they did in the Articles of Confederation.
Jeez, the deep pull. And I already praised Addy once in this episode, which is more than enough. But he just informed us of an article written by Dan Abramov, who wrote this.
Great.
Called,
you might not need Redux.
So scoop.
That's a good kind of way to get out ahead of things. Just like ship something on your own, and then write the you may not need this post before anyone else does.
For sure. All right, I think we're running up on a break, so yeah.
If you're looking for trusted freelance talent ready to join your team right now, I mean like within the week, call upon my friends at TopTal, TOPTAL.com. And as a listener of the show, you might actually be one of those developers or designers looking for awesome freelance, independent contractor type opportunities where you can still be a remote worker. You can still have the freedom you have right now, which means you can travel anywhere, you can be anywhere and do what you do. We love TopTop. They've been supporting this show for a very long time. They're really good friends of ours. If you want a personal introduction, I'd be glad to give that to you. Email me, adam@changelog.com. Otherwise, head to toptal.com. That's TOPTAL.com to learn more. Tell them Adam from Changelog sent you. And now back to the show.
And we're back. One segment that I believe only happened one time. I don't think it was officially a segment because in the episode we didn't know it would become a segment because a lot of becauses in this. Adam introed it. There's some show on the Food Network, Adam, Throwdown. Is that what it's called? Or is it like a
Oh, yeah,
segment of the
Bobby
show?
plays Throwdown.
Yeah, there we go. Exactly. So I think Adam and Paul had planned an argument to have, and Adam gave it the Throwdown section. But I recently got into an argument, a pleasant, friendly argument with a friend about function binding in the new world, especially in the world where we're not compiling fat arrows. So fat arrow functions cause a function to be bound to lexical this. So it would be very similar to like a function that at the end had a like dot bind this, but not exactly because you don't actually have to do the binding. It literally just uses lexical scope or whatever. Versus a function that doesn't use this inside at all, and also is not a fat arrow and is not bound. So an unbound function. So there's no such thing as an unbound fat arrow function because it's always bound to lexical this. But this friend was saying that by default now we should use fat arrows. That way everything is always bound to lexical this. And that's like, let's lint for that and let's not allow us to use the function keyword anymore. Thoughts?
That sounds
I
a bit.
I feel like we, like in the code that I write, I feel like we do this a lot, but not always. But it's because we need the.
So there are a few cases that is fine, like constructors. There's no constructors with fat arrows, and a few other like edge cases, and those would be perfectly fine to lint for. But I can definitely understand the argument where the fat arrow, like in my mind, unbound functions are the default, and if you don't use this, why would you bind the function? And I pretty much agree. That was my argument. Like I'm smart enough to know if I use the word this. But like, you know, like let's add like the team aspect and the fact that we already lint for semicolons and all these other things. And I can definitely see the argument that if everyone just uses fat arrows for everything, then this is always what you expect it to be. Even in the unbound case, everything is always bound to lexical this, and it kind of like smooths over maybe that confusing part of the language.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm saying is I think that we tend to do this anyway, but not we don't lint for it. But I think it's more out of laziness that we tend to do it because it's less typing. Whether we need this or not, we just do it because it's a really handy way to write. I mean, we do this all the time with like arrow functions that you pass to map or something like that. We don't need this binding, but it's just the handy way to do it.
Right. Yeah. So I guess I lose. It seems like.
But I don't know if there's a reason to do it. Yeah. It's like.
My opinion is pretty much that like I'm fine for our company choosing to like have an application where we lint in this way and write JavaScript in this style. But I think it's weird to like refer to fat arrows as like the default way to write functions and to refer to like functions that's like.
I feel like it's kind of like a beginner unfriendly history. Like it's a retcon of JavaScript.
Right.
To try and be like, this is the new right way to do it, and everything you've seen that's not from that's older than 3 years ago is just wrong and weird now.
Yeah, and I think one interesting thing about this person is that like pretty much their entire JavaScript career is in the era of fat arrows, and so I think actually to them fat arrows are default. Like, why would you write out function? And to me, that's just like a bizarre concept that like the first thing I do is write a function, and then if I think about it and I want it to be bound to lexical this, then I would choose to use the fat arrow. But that's not always true. But some of the stuff with fat arrows, like inside classes, can get a little wonky. You have to do like an equals fat arrow rather than do the shorthand, because then things aren't bound to lexical this. So there are some tricks and stuff that don't make it super easy. But I don't know. I think I'm kind of sold.
I think that you could rephrase this as like kids these days or get off my lawn.
Sure. yayQuery.
Well, I mean, there's no better time for the kids to get off your lawn than right fucking now.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to beep that out, aren't we?
Yeah.
Family friendly podcast.
I think every once in a while we get an explicit tag, so we'll see. Yeah, we certainly, even back in the day, we used to curse. I mean, not a ton, but a good amount. But the how many sparkles and ponies and rainbows were presented definitely did not give a fair indication of the amount of cursing that might end up on a show. We did this. This isn't a segment either, but we did this during our live reunion show last time. I thought I might bring it back. I wanted to feel the air for predictions for the web or JavaScript in the next 1 to 5 years or something like that. Like what's going to change, what standards are going to make it, what's going to die. Does anyone have any considerable thoughts here?
I have one. Somebody's going to tell me why I'm wrong.
It's the point of having a podcast.
5 years, probably maybe less, but I don't know how much less. Brave is going to overtake Firefox.
Whoa.
A brave prediction.
Yeah. For what it's worth, my primary browser has been Brave on mobile and desktop for maybe the last month, and most of the time it's fine.
Wait, what's the rendering engine? What's Brave built on?
Chromium.
Is it?
You knew the answer to that.
No. I for some reason I actually thought they built it on Gecko.
No, it's Chromium.
No, it definitely looks more Firefoxy in places, and I dislike a lot of those rough edges. But I think they got a pretty small team, especially working on that type of stuff. So I forgive them for now.
Yeah, I use it as my primary personal browser. I don't use it for I have a Chrome for work and a Chrome that I use for Gmail, but then I use Brave for browsing. Yeah.
I was talking to Brendan a little bit on Twitter about new features. First, one weird thing, Paul, is that DevTools in Brave can't be docked. It has to be a separate window because of some secure. I don't know, some I think it has to do with the separation of the sandboxing or something like that. I don't know. To something or other for me.
Process sandboxing. We have there's two separate processes. So yeah, putting them in the same thing is kind of painful, I guess, but interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're looking into doing some stuff where you could put Brave as your native runtime. What's that? WebKit native or something like that. Adam Electron. That's the one. Electron is like the WebKit native thing. Right, and some people are looking into getting Brave as the browser there. That way, by default, it's more user something or other secure. And then my last tidbit there is private browsing is something that I think users get wrong a lot of times. They think that you can log into your Twitter account in private browsing mode and no one knows it's you. They don't realize that their identity is tied to them 100 different ways, and just not having your cookies there isn't going to stop literally everyone from knowing your IP address and everything you do, and you're it doesn't force HTTPS, none of those things. And so they're looking into doing Yanzu Bcrypt is I think has a wiki page on the Brave GitHub for a Tor mode in so when you open up a new tab in private mode, it's Tored. So your regular browser isn't Tored, but if you open up a private thing, it's both they delete all your cookies and there's no normal private mode, but also it runs over Tor, which I think is kind of brilliant in the sense that that's what users expect whenever they think about private mode.
I think private really is.
Yeah, it's still you can then leak information via 100 other different ways, but that's kind of on you. But like the browser actually is doing its job if they had a Tor private one. I think that'd be really nifty, but also like the Tor infrastructure needs some work before that can necessarily become a super reality. Anyways, that was a long time on.
Well, that's my prediction.
Yeah, good job. Good. I like that prediction. Yeah, I don't know if I believe it. Anyone else have a prediction?
Yeah, I don't know if I believe it either, but
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Even if Brave doesn't like beat Firefox, I think Brave will influence the other browsers for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that eventually their coding is going to get easier on things that are not keyboards. I don't know. I don't have any insight onto when or how, but it just seems kind of unsustainable. That
because everyone has
right, like especially like a generation of people, have their primary internet access on their phone, and it's like in a world where like you're used to having your terminal up next to your editor, next to your browser, and like how do we make this work for people who are primarily developing without that? And maybe I can't imagine it's going to be as bad as it is now in 5 years.
Yeah, no, I also have no idea what it would be. But I guess that is ripe for all you entrepreneurs out there to fail a few times on some touch something or other holograms.
The Pinboard guy was just talking on Twitter about like how programmers don't think they can be replaced by automation. I wonder if we won't be using keyboards because we aren't doing anything at all.
Yeah, I was going to throw out a prediction along those lines, which was that that more basic web design is going to be handled by our AI overlords. And especially it makes a whole lot of sense with Wix and Squarespace, etc., to be using whatever that startup that I think didn't really
failed. It's like the AI generated
Hive or something.
Yeah,
I think it was the Hive.
It was the square, the grid.
The grid. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and I think that the idea is compelling and it would actually work for a bunch of websites. That would definitely work for a lot of smaller small businesses and all those sorts of things. But
yeah,
we'll see.
Only kind of on that path. It was a failed startup, but my manager, I feel like their startup had a cool idea that maybe will work in the future. It was user testing with AI, kind of match those two together. So rather than writing your tests, it's like an AI knows that there's a button and that it might click on, fill out a form, and then do these things and act like a real user would act on a page. So you could kind of just
compelling.
Give it a web page and then it would use it like a user would use it, rather than, obviously you'd probably still write other types of tests, but I thought that was kind of cool as an idea. But I think my actual prediction that I was going to say for this though is that there will be the React model of things might still be around, but I think my prediction is that it will be React-like, but the underlying technology will be web components. So you may author in something that's not web components, but I think I'm betting on it a little bit for performance reasons. That if someone can build something with the experience of React and all that stuff, and then I know some of this already exists, and you guys are all going to send me tweets or whatever, but something will come along that actually gets people to change their mind. But I think it'll happen sometime.
I think Alex Russell just kind of took over your body there for a minute.
Oh no, it happens 5 minutes.
That actually that happened a long time ago.
Live through me. Cool. So someone asked a question, Paul, in the JS Party Slack channel, which you guys can all join, changelog.com/JS Party. And you kind of perked up, and I was a little bit interested in why you perked up so much, because the question seemed like a joke. So the question was, why is query selector all so long? And then you also mentioned add event listener is also long. Why is that funny? Why do you have a story about that?
Okay, so I think the question seems pretty valid because it is, to go back to our yayQuery roots, it is getting elements and doing things with them. And so and I write code with query selector all and add event listener every single day, so I still do feel this pain. So why they're actually so long? One, because naming is hard, and two, because standards is hard. And so put those together and you always end up with really big names. But there's conversations on both of these cases to introduce shorter APIs for them. So taking query selector all first, there is a published spec called selectors level 2 that has a element.find and element.findAll method, which basically are the exact same things as query selector all, but with one key fix, which is the really weird behavior where query selector all, like you do element.query selector all, and it can actually return an element that is not a descendant of that rooted element that you're using, which is
What?
really unexpected, and that's why.
Yeah, what? I sort of
How?
tuned out. Wait, what?
Yeah, you can do. I think what it is like, let's say that you have the small item container, and then you say query selector all, and then you pass it hash ID and then something else, and it will actually just reach out above this whole item container and return it from another place in the DOM.
So the context doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What if
Which
I
is-
want the context to matter? Because that's dumb.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, basically, it was a bug.
Context
in,
stopped mattering a long time ago in this country.
It was a bug in how they designed the feature, and they just messed it up. And you can actually go back. Rezig, I think John Rezig has like 2 blog posts around 2007, 2008 saying, hey, there's this API that's about to come out. It has this massive bug, but I guess nobody really decided to like pay attention and fix it before every browser shipped it. So that happened. So find and find all actually fix this bug.
But it's shipped. It exists.
Query selector all?
Find and find all.
No.
Oh,
Find and find all do not exist other than in the spec. And they're just sitting there in the spec looking so pretty, and you're just like, it would be nice to type something a little bit shorter. And I was looking into it, and as far as I can tell, spec-wise, it's in good shape, decently good shape. It just, browsers have not actually committed to, they just haven't done it yet. I think just haven't gotten around to it, and no one's like pressured them.
Is there a different story for Add Event Listener?
Yeah, slightly different story there, which is that there are a lot of conversations around introducing an on method to the element prototype, which would just be nice to shorten things up. And there's some hesitation there from the editor of the DOM spec, who basically says, yes, it's kind of nice for developer ergonomics, but if we're gonna, go and introduce this new method, we might as well introduce some kind of next generation event listening functionality into it while we're at it. So not just copy the exact same API, but handle kind of more observable like support for listening to events. And so let's wait until all of those kind of primitives exist before we introduce it. So that's kind of been the position for about like 7 years. So that's just going to hang out there for a little while longer, I think.
For sure. Yeah, sounds like it. I think some of my favorite predictions from the channel were that we wouldn't get element media queries, which have been predicted for a really long time. It's the Linux of the desktop of CSS features. For those of you who are unfamiliar, you can make media queries based on the size of the entire browser window, but not based on the size of the individual elements. Does that change a little bit with Shadow DOM? Does anyone know, Paul? I assume you can do like element or like media queries inside of a Shadow DOM, or is it like full? Maybe no one knows.
It's not scoped to the Shadow DOM. No, it's still the full thing. It doesn't change
Still
with Shadow
full
DOM.
window. That's rough.
Yep.
Ugh.
I know that the biggest concern, like we have people listening who know this better than me. I know the biggest concern with element queries was that doing height element queries can go into a recursive loop, and that's a big problem. And I actually sit pretty close to one of the CSS spec editors, and I was like, hey, but what if we just do width, just the width element query, and just ignore height, because we don't, like, developers don't need it, and it's hard for you guys as spec editors to figure out. So what about just width? And he's like, yeah, but it's like not. Actually, I don't know what he said, but that would be ideal.
You did not listen to his response.
He said something.
I have a suggestion, Paul.
Okay.
Cool. We normally end the episode with picks. Do you guys have picks by any chance? Did any of you do that? I gave you some homework. Anyone have one? Yeah.
If I say yes, is that going to be pressure for other people? Or will that just give them time to?
I think
got one.
Okay, cool. We're going to do 2 picks, Rebecca and Paul, because we're a little bit short on time. So Rebecca, what's your pick?
So I lied when I said I'm a JavaScript developer. I'm actually mostly a manager these days. So that's my dirty secret. But my pick is Camille Fournier's book, The Manager's Path. If you, like us, have grown up in the last few years, and maybe you're taking on some more responsibilities at work, even if you're not a manager, it's a really, really awesome book about technical leadership and navigating that in an organization. So not about JavaScript, but highly recommend it.
Cool. I think Adam, you said, or Paul, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can.
Okay.
Use that.
Thanks. So my pick is an image. It's a slide from a presentation that I picked up on, I think, the web dev subreddit late last night, and I like this.
This is an old joke for what it's worth, Paul.
This is what?
This is an old joke.
Very old joke.
You don't know. Yeah, but
really,
I'm glad that you have never seen it before, because that validates my life. Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, I'll just tell it. Okay. Maybe it. Oh. This is a cheat sheet.
You heard it here first. Paul Irish didn't know something before someone else. It happened.
Oh god. It's a cheat sheet for HTTP return codes. So we have, return codes are 100s, 200s, 300s, 400s, and 500s. So the 100s return codes translates essentially to hold on. The 200s are like, straight up 200 is the you're all good. So 200s is here you go. The 300s, go away.
Redirects.
400s, you fucked up. And the 500s, I fucked up.
Server errors.
Yeah. Which I think that actually, seeing it like that makes it really, really clear.
I feel like somebody just explained a joke to me.
Yeah, it made it really clear to me in 1997. Remember that joke first got released.
We love you, Paul.
Yeah, the if you're interested in some of the funnier spec stuff, there's a lot of people. The joke that I think I see get made the most. The thing that's reminding me of this is the 418 "I'm a teapot" response. But the spec joke that I see made the most is that HTML should add a sarcasm element to the specification, right? That you guys see that one all the time. I think GF3 had a tweet.
Yep.
It's in there. There's a sarcasm element. It's in the spec. Go check it out. Yeah, it's an official sarcasm element.
That kind of gets us into a trick though, because they did reply to GF3's tweet with, "Oh yeah, we should totally add that."
I'll find the link or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong.
Wow.
And we can me and Paul can both be wrong at the end of an episode or whatever.
Well, I mean, if people want to stay up to date with like the freshers web dev memes and like jokes, what they should do is like just follow the I am developer Twitter account.
Actually, it got shut down. It's gone.
Really?
What?
No.
Yeah. Oh
It
man.
doesn't even exist anymore. Yeah, for those people wondering, there was a Twitter account called I am developer. It was like
Wait.
Napoleon Dynamite.
It's there. It's up there.
It is?
I see a tweet as of 2 days ago.
We're just wrong left and right.
It was gone for a while. I saw tweets like
I'm blocked. I'm blocked. I am developer.
oh, you're
blocked
blocked.
me.
I see.
I think both
We're
of you
all
guys are
blocked. That's funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
someone was tweeting like a celebration on that account being gone recently. I bet you they were blocked too. So never mind. This is a Twitter account that just steals jokes from other developers, and then a million more people favorite it whenever they tweet it without any attribution. It's the
So, yeah, my pick was to pick on I am developer, you joke stealing. Jerry.
All
right.
I think we're extremely out of time, but it was a lovely getting to catch up with y'all.
Indeed.
Peace out.
Peace.
Woo! Woo!
We're sorry to tell you it's time to go. We hope you had fun, cause now we are done with our show.
All right, that wraps up this episode of JS Party, a takeover episode from the yayQuery podcast. Alex Sexton, Paul Irish, Rebecca Murphey, and Adam Sontag back for a reunion show. We record this show live every Friday at 3 p.m. US Eastern, and we'd love for you to be in Slack with us. Join the community so you can Slack with us in real time. Head to changelog.com/community. Special thanks to our sponsors, Sentry and TopTal. Also thanks to Fastly, our bandwidth partner. Head to fastly.com to learn more. This episode was edited by Jonathan Youngblood. The theme music for JS Party is produced by Breakmaster Cylinder. Also thanks to Jonathan Neal for the usage of the yayQuery podcast soundtrack. We'll see you again next week. Thanks for listening.